more motherfucking 20 though, man.
That's 420.
So what's up, everybody? It's me. Maybe 420. Now, I know a lot of people probably won't even take me seriously about anything I say. I don't know if you guys heard, but Venezuela uh, president has been captured by the United States. And I'm like, what? Like, what the freak is going on? United States captured a president of a sovereign country? Like, man, what the heck happened? And his wife. I just thought maybe I was trying to look into it, and I came up. I don't know. I don't know. Let's just say that I don't know what's going on. I don't know why, what I'm saying, the United States will go into a country that is not even its equal and do what it did. But, it always raises a conspiracy. Like, I don't know. But this video I'm about to play, I'm about to react to, has something to do with Jeffrey Sachs. I guess he's a politician. I want you guys just pay real close attention to what he's saying. You know what I'm saying? And how this country is totally disregarding, the laws of the world.
Coercion or economic strangulation has the right to determine Venezuela's political future or to exercise control over its affairs. This question goes directly to Article 2, Section 4 of the United Nations Charter, which prohibits the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. The Council must decide whether that prohibition is to be upheld or abandoned. Abandoning it would carry consequences of the gravest kind. Let me offer some background. Since 1947, the United States foreign policy has repeatedly employed force, covert action, and political manipulation to bring about regime change in other countries. This is a matter of carefully documented historical record. In her book, Covert Regime Change, political scientist Lindsay O'Rourke documents 70 attempted U.S. regime change operations between 1947 and 1989 alone. These practices did not end with the Cold War. Since 1989, major United States regime change operations undertaken without authorization by the Security Council have included, among the most consequential, Iraq 2003, Libya 2011, Syria beginning in 2011, Honduras 2009, Ukraine 2014, and Venezuela from 2002 onward. The methods employed are well established and well documented. They include open warfare, covert intelligence operations, instigation of unrest, support for armed groups, manipulation of mass and social media, bribery of military and civilian officials, targeted assassinations, false flag operations, and economic warfare. These measures are illegal under the UN Charter, and they typically result in ongoing violence, lethal conflict, political instability, and deep suffering of the civilian population. The recent U.S. record with respect to Venezuela is also clear. In April 2002, the U.S. knew of and approved an attempted coup against the government. In the 2010s, the United States funded civil society groups actively engaged in anti-government protests. When the government cracked down on the protests, the U.S. followed with a series of sanctions. In 2015, President Barack Obama declared Venezuela to be, and I quote, an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and foreign policy of the United States. In 2017, at a dinner with Latin American leaders on the margin of the UN General Assembly, President Trump openly discussed the option of the U.S. invading Venezuela to overthrow the government. During 2017 to 2020, the United States imposed sweeping sanctions on the state oil company PDVSA. Oil production fell by 75% from 2016 to 2020, and the real GDP per capita declined by 62%. The UN General Assembly has repeatedly voted overwhelmingly against such unilateral coercive measures. Under international law, only the Security Council has the authority to impose such measures. On the 23rd of January 2019, the United States unilaterally recognized Mr. Juan Guaido as interim president, and a few days later froze approximately $7 billion of Venezuelan sovereign assets held abroad and gave the designated authority over certain of these assets. These actions form part of a continuous U.S. regime change effort spanning more than 2 decades. In the past year, the United States has carried out bombing operations in 7 countries, none of which were authorized by the UN Security Council, and none of which were undertaken in lawful self-defense under the Charter. The targeted countries include Iran, Iraq, Nigeria, Somalia, Syria, Yemen, and now Venezuela. In the past month, President Trump has issued direct threats against 6 UN member states, including Colombia, Denmark, Iran, Mexico, Nigeria, and of course, Venezuela. Members of the Council are not called upon to judge Nicolas Maduro. They are not called upon to assess whether the recent U.S. attack and ongoing naval quarantine results in freedom or in subjugation. Members of the Council are called upon to defend international law, and specifically the UN Charter. The realist school of international relations, articulated most brilliantly by John Mearsheimer, accurately describes the condition of international anarchy as the tragedy of great power politics. Realism is therefore a description, not a solution for peace. Its own conclusion is that anarchy leads to tragedy. In the aftermath of World War I, the League of Nations was created to end the tragedy through the application of international law. Yet the world's leading nations failed to defend international law in the 1930s, leading to renewed global war. The United Nations emerged from that catastrophe as humanity's second great effort to place international law above international anarchy. In the words of the Charter, the UN was created, quote, to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, which twice in our lifetime has brought untold sorrow to mankind. Given that we are in the nuclear age, failure cannot be repeated. Humanity would perish. There would be no third chance. To fulfill its responsibilities under the Charter, the Security Council should immediately affirm the following actions. The United States shall immediately cease and desist from all explicit and implicit threats or use of force against Venezuela. The United States shall terminate its naval quarantine and all related coercive military measures undertaken in the absence of authorization by the UN Security Council. The United States shall immediately withdraw its military forces from within and along the perimeter of Venezuela, including intelligence, naval, air, and other forward deployed assets positioned for coercive purposes. Venezuela shall adhere to the UN Charter and to the human rights protected in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The Secretary General, I recommend, should immediately appoint a special envoy mandated to engage relevant Venezuelan and international stakeholders and to report back to the Security Council within 14 days with recommendations consistent with the Charter, and the Security Council should remain urgently seized of this matter. All member states should refrain from unilateral threats, coercive measures, or armed actions undertaken outside the authority of the UN Security Council. In closing, Mr. President and distinguished members of the Council, peace and the survival of humanity depend on whether the United Nations Charter remains a living instrument of international law or is allowed to wither into irrelevance. That is the choice before this council today. Thank you very much.
I thank.
And the UN and other countries is I guess someone's on board, some not is on board. But the reason why I'm doing this video is because I think, this could be very dangerous. This could be very, very dangerous. Trump says he want to be a president that doesn't do wars, and this right here is the act of what? What if someone came in this country and kidnapped, one of our politicians and say they was, war crimes or whatever? Or what if somebody come in and kidnap Donald Trump or Clinton for the things they have? I don't know. But all I know is this, don't think, you could do something and then somebody else don't think they can copy it. This could be very dangerous what these people are doing. So how many times he done said the United States has been going on these these missions in other people's countries, and trying to change the regime, trying to, inflict their influence, the Western side influences on other countries, and why it's always the smaller countries? It's the smaller countries. So it's not like it's a big major country like Russia, like, for what Russia is doing to Ukraine, and Ukraine is asking the United States for help. United States is only doing so much, but for them to show what they did in Venezuela, it's way different. And maybe it was all because they don't have the resources and the firepower to fight back against, a big powerful country like the United States. Type of empowerment because of guns and weapons, but that's what the United States are doing to Venezuela because they don't have that. They don't have the resources and the firepower that the United States have. They just went in there. They just went in there and grabbed the husband and wife, both of them. Talking about, oh, she's a conspiracy. She was aiding the bed. Like, what?
I am not standing here today to attack one nation or to turn this moment into a confrontation between flags. That would be too easy, and it would solve nothing. I am standing here to speak against a mindset, a dangerous mindset, that believes power gives permission to interfere, permission to decide for others, permission to redraw the boundaries of dignity whenever it is convenient. This mindset does not belong to one country. It appears wherever power forgets responsibility. History teaches us something very clear. When strength is used without restraint, it stops being leadership and becomes domination. And domination never brings stability. It creates silence, but silence built on fear is temporary. Beneath it, anger grows, distrust grows, resistance grows. I have seen this pattern before, not in books but in the lives of African people who were told what was best for them without ever being asked. When powerful nations speak about order but act through pressure, they weaken the very values they claim to protect. Law cannot survive when it is applied selectively. Justice cannot exist when it depends on convenience. And peace cannot last when entire populations feel humiliated rather than respected. I am not here to provoke. I am here to remind. The world does not need more demonstrations of force. It needs demonstrations of restraint. True strength is shown when you can choose dialogue over coercion, respect over intimidation, and cooperation over control. If we do not correct this mindset, then no country, big or small, will be safe from the consequences that follow. When powerful nations decide to make examples out of leaders they disagree with, they are not enforcing law, they are sending a message. And that message is not about justice, it is about fear. It says if you do not align, this could be you. That is not how international order is preserved. That is how distrust is manufactured. I want to be very clear here. Leaders come and go. Governments change. But when you publicly target leaders to intimidate entire nations, you are not punishing individuals, you are undermining the sovereignty of millions of people who did not choose to be part of that confrontation. You are telling citizens that their voices, their votes, and their national choices can be overridden from outside. Africa understands this deeply because we lived through it for decades. Sanctions that punish children instead of politicians. Interventions that promised stability but delivered chaos. Political pressure disguised as moral responsibility. Each time the justification sounded noble. Each time the outcome was destruction. If international law is real, it must apply to everyone equally. Otherwise it becomes a tool, not a principle. And tools can be turned against anyone.
So, I don't know. Stay tuned for the next video. Alright, I'm out. Peace. Love.
Gotta keep that on me. Gotta keep that on me. Cause a whole lot on me. And the boys, they want me.